Welcome to the 24K Life podcast. I'm your host, Derick Gant, and at the 24K Life, we love to bring in experts that specialize in areas that will help you live a better life. You know, each and every one of us is striving to find that answer to our own key, to restructure our own DNA, to understand ourselves so that we can be better. 24K Life is all about how you can balance the 5 core pillars of your life. You have to have your money right. That's why I'm coming to you as the money coach. We have to have our mindset right, our relationships, our spiritual life, our physical life. Now, when you get these things in balance, then you can accelerate and really have a 24K life. Today, we are bringing John Dech, who is a gut health expert. Now, I don't know if you've been paying any attention at all about what's going on in the universe, but gut health is rising up as one of the core elements to our core good health. And I have heard a lot of controversial things about gut health. So you know what? Because it's not my world, I'm bringing in the master with the plan. John, welcome to the 24K Life podcast.
So glad to be here. It's close enough. I got a brother named John, but we're 50% there. So we're happy to be here, man.
Good. I'm sorry, Josh. I apologize. Oh my God. You know what? We're going to do this over.
My mom makes the same mistake. I swear to God. My brothers are Jeff, Joel, Josh, John, Jordan, Justin, Jeremy.
I don't have an excuse. That's, she has an excuse. I have none other than not paying close attention. So I apologize. But Josh is the gut health expert. What's John do? Tell us about John. What does John do?
I don't know. He spends money on dumb shit.
Oh, there it is. Well, see, now you need to have him call me so we can get that fixed for him. So we'll help him out. But in all seriousness, man, gut health has really caught my attention over the last couple years. And I recognize, how many problems people have. I've been really blessed in that area that I don't have problems that I know of. But, we were just introducing and talking to each other a little bit ago. You were talking about some of the chronic issues that people have. What can you tell us about just the generalities, not the specifics of your background, of how you got to be the gut expert?
I wouldn't say the gut expert. I'll say a gut expert.
Oh, dude, we're calling you the expert, man.
There are a lot of guys out there a lot smarter than me. I promise you that.
No, we don't need smart's not what we're going for. We're going for results, right? Impact.
Sure.
Understandability.
I like that. Well, it all started back when I was 19. I started as a paramedic. And it was really interesting in that career. I found a lot of the same stuff. I was more of sick care than health care. I had people coming in that we pick up week over week for the same problems who would get dropped off at the hospital. They would get more medication of the same, or they get a change of medication and sent back until it inevitably came back again. And I realized very quickly that medication wasn't fixing anything. Right? It's not actually helping these people heal. It's merely blocking symptoms. And so I didn't want to be in the sick care industry anymore. I wanted to do healthcare. And through a chain of happy accidents, I ended up moving across the country and getting into personal training, which I have been doing for, a couple of years. I've been involved in the fitness space since I was 15, right?
Okay.
Through sports and working out and gym stuff. So it's always been an interest to me studying bodybuilders. And I got into that in my early 20s. And one of the first clients who came to see me, her name was Lynn, and she was 57 years old. I was probably 21, 22 at the time. She was 57, and her breakfast was 17 pills and a shot of insulin. She had 9 more pills and insulin for bedtime. And it's not uncommon for people to be on 15, 20 plus medications. She slept with a CPAP machine. She had high blood pressure. Her work actually had her on the disability list. And so there's just a whack of things going on. Her health was on a steady decline. And we started working together on food and nutrition and exercise. By the time she was 59 years old, she actually broke a world record as a weightlifter in the Raw Powerlifting Federation.
Wow.
And so, oh yeah. It was wild. And that just opened my eyes to the power of the human body to heal itself. And it was just really neat to see. And so again, more happy accidents and chain of events where I ended up going to some conferences, and I was always at these trade shows, and I heard someone speaking about the gut biome, and everything she said just hit me like a sack of bricks. And like, that is what I'm going to do. That's the rest of my life now. And I saved up for a couple of years, went back to school, became a nutritionist, and I just got into it, man. One thing led to another. I've seen diabetes and depression and skin issues and all kinds of stuff earlier in the career, and it all came back to the gut. And everything, up to 93% of the leading causes of death in the USA have a gut connection and are entirely preventable.
Wow, 93%? Are you serious?
That's 14 out of 15. The 15th leading cause of death is suicide, homicide, accidents, injuries, which means every leading cause of death we're calling a normal cause of death. And I'm talking all of it, man. Like we're not holding any punches here. The leading causes of death that our doctors are telling us are problems like heart disease, cancer, strokes, respiratory issues, diabetes, Alzheimer's, kidney disease, liver disease, Parkinson's. All these leading causes of death are not natural. Their gut is linked to them in some way, in some cases largely responsible, and they're all preventable.
So what about where you are? You're in Canada, correct?
That's right.
So you said that 93% in America, and we all know we eat shitty here. And the FDA approves things that other countries like Europe, you hear the big one right now are Pop-Tarts, and I used to love Pop-Tarts. But thank God I stopped eating them years ago. But I didn't stop because of what they're saying about them now. I stopped because they just weren't good for me, and I knew that. But what about where you are? What about the rest of the world? I mean, I don't expect you to tell me exactly the percentage, but is the cause of death equally as high because of nutrition?
Well, different locations around the world have different causes, and that's what makes medicine so interesting to study. Is when we look at cause of death, it's largely based on lifestyle, food, nutrition, location, right? And that variance of lifestyle nutrition varies by location. And so if you were to go over to Japan, they have a very different work style than we do here. There's a lot more societal issues that they have there around, shame and honor and cultural things that they have, which makes a suicide rate extraordinarily high. Whereas here, it's going to be things like depression or imbalanced hormones and all kinds of stuff. And so, but what I can tell you confidently is the USA is the gut disease capital of the world, easily. 72%, man, up to 72% of Americans complain of having gut issues on a regular basis, like a weekly basis. And I'm in Canada, and it's not much better. We've recently actually taken the gold medal here for the most cases of IBD or inflammatory bowel disease. That's Crohn's and colitis per capita in the world. Only second to the United States, who actually was ahead of us. So,
wow. So, because I don't have any regular issues, what are the common gut issues that people are having to 72%?
So they're complaining of things like gas, smelly gas, frequent gas, bloat, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, anything that's abnormal. And the challenge is even Western medicine, like your doctor will tell you, if you're even having a bowel movement every couple of days, you're fine. If you are not having at least 1 to 2 fully formed, normal, easy bowel movements every single day, you are not fine. I promise you that. But they've been told that it's fine. The problem is we have now taken what's common, which is sick people, and called it normal.
Right.
And our actual scale of expectation, what even medicine uses to measure wellness, that scale is going downhill because they're now taking normal or common and making that the new normal.
Right.
And so the reference ranges we use in blood work and all kinds of clinical data keeps getting spread wider and wider as to what's acceptable, and we have a sicker and sicker population, and we're not doing anything to help ourselves. The medical community is just burying us.
Yeah, one of the things that you said that really jumped out at me, and you said a lot of important things, and I am not trivializing what you just said, but it's what jumped out at me.
Yeah.
I used to get calls, my kid's mom and I used to get calls from the school because they were like, your kids are playing around in the bathroom. And I would say, oh, no, they're not playing around. They take forever. And you said easy bowel movements. And I mean, they literally are in there, and they're adult men now, and they still take forever. I'm in and out in 2 minutes. So I just don't understand the problem. So you're saying that even though they've been doing this their entire life, there's an issue there.
Very well could be, right? And it's hard because everyone's different. There's always going to be variance. I take a little bit longer too. I sit and sometimes I get on my phone, but I could be done a lot quicker. Sometimes I'm not, but I'm actually currently dealing with a candida issue that came, branching off a large last couple of years of problems and, infections and surgeries and stuff. And so that was a whole different scenario, but that's a fungal issue causing inflammation, causing disruption in the bowel. When my gut was at its best, same thing, in, out, boom. You wipe once, twice, you're done. And you're golden. I have little stools for my feet, so I sit up in like a squat position. So things move you. They're great. That's how humans were meant to squat, right?
That's right. We didn't. The world wasn't created with toilets, so I guess you made them lower.
And we often look at our gut and we go, "What's gut health?" I mean, gut health to me is everything related to not just feeling good, but how it performs. I often argue our gut bacteria may very well be more important than our own DNA, at least comparable. And so when we're talking about guts and even performance, and you talk about living the 24K life, you want to focus, you want to have drive, you want to have determination, stable moods, good relationships, you want to have energy. Like, it all starts in the gut.
All right, man. So can we just stay here for a while, or do we need to bring you to just live with us? I mean, what do we need to do to understand what we should be doing or shouldn't be doing? And I should know this, and I apologize. Have you written a book? What do we? You need to write a book, bro. We need the cliff notes.
Mark Devine said that to me just like last week. He's like, "Have you written a book yet?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Tell you what, when you do, let's circle back. We'll have another conversation." I'm like, "Okay."
No, we're going to circle back a whole bunch of times, but we also want the book.
Yeah, well, I've been asked, so I'll be on it. Give me some time.
So let me ask you this way. So, I know about the probiotics, but let's take a normal person like me, which obviously I'm in a low category of 72% of having some issues regularly, and I don't. What should I be doing to be living the 24K life, to have a little bit more energy, to have a little bit more clarity, so should I completely take everything in my routine nutrition wise and toss it, take my vitamins and toss them, and then start adding stuff in little by little and seeing how it affects me and feels? What should I be doing and or taking as a baseline for good gut health?
Yeah, really great question. So everyone's going to be different based on where you're at, of course, right? If you're
that's why I said toss all of my stuff and then add little by little so I can see how it affects me.
Oh, and totally. I mean, if anybody's ever wondering,
why
not? Why not?
Okay.
Because here's the thing, you're trying to figure out how to make the soup taste better, but you've already got a soup. So you're just adding ingredients and trying to pull all your cooked carrots out. The question is, can you empty the pot and start from scratch?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't want to do that because it's a lot of work. I mean, if up to me, what I'd say is, go down to ground beef and rice for like 2 weeks.
Okay.
With olive oil, go real basic, just get the macros in, a lot of red meat, animal products, see how you feel. If you feel good from there, maybe try cutting out the rice, maybe a little bit more animal based, see how you feel from there. And then as we start to progress, you can add foods back in, but we don't really know what's causing the problem until we do a classic elimination diet. But it's very hard to do. Nobody wants to cut all the foods out, all the enjoyment, all the fun, all the social stuff, and it's very, very difficult to do. And so my advice when we're dealing with these things, we're dealing with going back and figure out what's causing the problem. The gold standard still today is an elimination diet. Even though we can get all kinds of testing done, you can do food testing, whether it's through blood or hair or whatever. You can do what's called organic acid testing, which is really neat because every cell, everything's in your body produce byproducts. And so if you have a candida, like a fungal issue or a mold issue, if you have too much bacteria, too little bacteria, they all produce byproducts. These are organic acids. They come out in your urine, and then bing, bang, boom, you can get those measured up really easily through a test, and we can see what's going on a cellular level. And so if it's not just your gut, maybe it's your immune system, right? I mean, 70 to 90% of your immune cells come from your gut anyways. And so it's connected to everything. And so we ask, what can we do? The gold standard is elimination, but the general rule is this. If you're
I had no idea what I was talking about, bro.
You're great.
No idea. So
it's a great question, though.
I feel like I'm a genius now. I had no idea. That's what we were supposed to do.
No, the general rule, man. You're great. If your great-great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it, don't eat it. It's that simple. Like, if it's not like an animal or a vegetable or a fruit, don't eat it. Because that's as simple as that. The problem is 80+% of us are eating 80+% processed, refined, artificial food that never existed 100 years ago, and we're wondering why we have all these new diseases. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out.
So It's kind of interesting what you said. You said beef and rice, ground beef and rice. Should it be organic? Should it be grass fed? Should it be? I mean, what should it be?
The gold standard, I'd say, is grass-fed, grass-finished, hormone-free, pasture-raised, like from a farm that you can drive to and pick up. That's what I do. I live in Alberta, lots of farms. The problem is, if you pay for the grass-fed, grass-finished, organic label in grocery stores, you're paying a mint for it. Like, it's crazy what they'll charge, because to get that organic certification takes a lot of work to actually get it certified. But if you go to a farm, you know they don't spray, you know it's all natural. They don't have to have the organic label for you to know it's actually organic, same quality.
Right.
But on that note, there are some doctors who will argue, especially on the carnivore side, even a steak from Safeway is better than eating, a bunch of salads. So there's so much information on both sides. I don't subscribe for all of my clients as a carnivore or a plant-based diet. I never go vegan. I never tell anyone ever vegan, always animal products. But there are arguments on both sides. Some have more validity than others. And so I subscribe to intuitive eating.
Intuitive eating, I like that. So what makes you feel good?
Exactly.
And I like the other thing. I like the other thing you said, which and not feel good for a few minutes. Feel good, long term, because you can eat some stuff that'll make you feel good, and then you feel shitty after you.
Yeah, it gets you high is what it does. Yeah.
Exactly. But I also like what you said. If your grandma don't recognize it, don't eat it.
Golden rule, easy to follow, man.
Dude, I'm gonna first of all, that's the second word that I'm stealing. Not from you, but that's the first word I'm stealing from you, but I stole manifesting from somebody else. But I like it. Gold standard. The 24K Life gold standard. I'm going to use that. I love it. And it's so easy to understand what you're saying from that perspective. So we have this. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So you're saying, ground beef and rice, but you're not saying anything about vegetables or fruits. So what's up with the veggies and fruits?
Man, I eat fruits. My personal diet. Here's the thing. The reason I say ground beef and rice, it's tolerated by everybody. I mean, most people can eat ground beef and rice very easily. Even my dog can eat ground beef and rice if he's not feeling great. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of stuff we can do in that regard. For me, I'm very animal-based, borderline carnivore. Mm-hmm. I eat red meat up to 2 pounds a day with butter and salt. And I'll tell you, I've recently had blood work done. I've been doing this for 6 months, 12 months now, very animal based. And I went full carnivore for 3 months, introduced fruits after that. And I gave a stool sample beginning of this year, and I was having a ton of issues. This was just precipitating like some infection and stuff going on. Right. A ton of issues in my stool sample. My bacteria was all over the place. It's called a GI map. So it measures the good, the bad, all of it. Right. It was a big disaster, my GI map. My blood work was a little bit funky, a lot of inflammatory markers. I'm an animal-based carnivore now. I think I'm on nearly 12 months. Just did another stool sample less than a month ago. It's almost perfect. Awesome. Blood work is almost perfect. And like my insurance company, I have, of course, my life insurance, came down to do the blood labs, and it's never looked better. And I eat an immense amount of red meat.
I love it. I was on vacation last week, and I had steak 2 days in a row, and and when I say feeling bad, I didn't physically feel bad. I mentally felt bad. Like, you're not supposed to eat this much red meat, but it was so good.
But you feel good. That's the intuition, because medicine is bullshit, man. Medicine is bullshit. We've been lied to so much about everything. Statin drugs and saturated fats and cholesterol is bad. It's bullshit. Every cell in your body is made of cholesterol. If you have a messy gut and a messy liver and you eat like an asshole, those foods aren't going to digest well. But if you're a good, healthy person, man, you can eat nothing but red meat and water. 1800s, they used it to cure Crohn's disease. Like, it's remarkable. Medicine is a joke to me. It's
too smart for our own good, man. We're going sideways. So,
I'll hit you with one more thing, Derick. Ben Azadi says a great quote. I don't know if it's his or he got it from someone. He says, human beings are the only species smart enough to make their own food and stupid enough to eat it.
That's a perfect quote. And so true, especially here in America, because we come up with some stuff, boy. It's amazing, because I was one of the things that really got me, sparked my interest was they were saying, I want to say it's Europe, but they were like, in Europe, you look at a bag of corn chips and there's 3 ingredients. No, it was Costa Rica. You look at the bag of a bag of corn chips, and it's 3 ingredients. If you look at a bag of corn chips in America, there's like 19 different things in it. Like, wow, that is so crazy.
McDonald's, 3 ingredients in the UK, 17 ingredients in North America. Carl's Jr., 21 ingredients in their French fries. Like, their French fries supposed to be potato and fat, but they're full of fillers and chemicals. And Lucky Charms has trisodium phosphate. They use that in rat poison. Why do you need it in food? Like, it's bananas, the shit they put in what the FDA approves, and they say, oh, it's fine.
Oh, you're fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
The FDA easily is one of the most corrupt organizations on earth, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But
that's hilarious. I don't disagree with that, man. Just from the stuff that we're starting to learn, half the stuff you learn coming off TikTok anymore. It's like TikTok will tell you all the good stuff. Are you on TikTok? That's what I want to know.
I have a TikTok.
You've got to. I'm telling you, bro. You've got to get on TikTok. I thought I was too old for it, and some college kids were analyzing my social universe, and they put me on TikTok. And you have the right subject matter for TikTok, right?
Yeah, you know what? We're actually hiring a social media firm coming up here in a couple of weeks. We start with them January 1st. Today's December 21st. We start with them in a week and a half. And they're going to be managing all of that. The repurpose, all the content.
Start creating your agenda of topics that you want to talk about, because you know so much. And when you do, make sure you reach out so I can follow you and then share your stuff, because I have a blood issue, and I learned how to maybe address it from Barbara O'Neill, who's on TikTok. And
I love Barbara.
Barbara, she's dope, man.
Yeah, I interviewed her for my show. Like,
no, you didn't.
Yeah, buddy. If you don't listen to my podcast, man, go give her a listen.
Dude, so here's this podcast. It's www.reversiblepod.com. So go check it out. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to be a new student. I watch Barbara damn near every week. I learned something from her. I got the Celtic salt from her, right?
She's my favorite, man.
Me too, man.
Episode 27, Designed to Heal. We had her on just a couple weeks ago.
All right. So you have this. Is this your podcast, the Reversible Pod, or is it something different?
Yeah, Reversible Pod. That's the one.
So yeah, we're gonna go check you out, man, because I'm all about Barbara O'Neill. Now I'm all about Josh Dech, because we're gonna fix this thing, and we're gonna be healthier and happier. And it's always cool when you. And I won't say I know you, but kind of know somebody that you trust and you listen to. So what about the extras, like the probiotics and the things that they tell you to take? I used to drink kombucha a lot. Yeah. And then somebody was like, you probably shouldn't be drinking that. You just need live probiotic, cultures that you can get. I'm like, okay, Jesus, I don't know which way to go.
Here's the thing, and this is the issue, is there's so many differing opinions, and there's science and research studies that back up everything. Most of them have bias or financial. I mean, almost all of them are going to have some kind of financial incentive. Otherwise, people wouldn't bother doing it, right? Like, they got to know their shit. They got to make sure they're making the money. And so if you invest in a study, you can back up your claims. You can make more money. Right? You can market accordingly. That's where a lot of these studies come from. So when people cite studies, there's always going to be some kind of bias. And so we're looking at probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics, right? There's 3 different things. If you think of it like fish in a fishbowl, that's how I kind of describe them.
Okay.
Your probiotics are the actual living bacteria. Those are your fish, right? They swim around and move around, and you have them everywhere. Like, you actually have bacteria. If you look in the mirror, maybe 30% of you is like you. The rest of it's all microbes and bacteria, right?
Wow.
So, they outnumber our own cells in our gut. We have 100 trillion microbes. Mm-hmm. You only have about 10 trillion cells in the rest of your body. So they outnumber us 10 to 1. And if take it one step further, we have 23,000 genes, give or take, in the human genome. We have 3 million different genes inside of your gut bacteria. It's 130 times more genetic material in your gut than your own genetics. And so we talk about what they need to eat, they got to eat, right? So your probiotics are those live bacteria. They're the fish in the fishbowl.
Right.
The prebiotics are the fish food, right? Your bacteria actually consume those. Well, guess what? You eat, you poop. Your fish eat, they poop. And so these prebiotics, fish food, feeds the fish. Your probiotics, they poop out postbiotics. And those postbiotics are really good stuff if they're healthy bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So they are short chain fatty acids. They are vitamins. They actually, like other fish in the ecosystem, will actually gobble up and eat, junk and algae in the tank. Your bacteria can help detoxify. They help balance out hormones. They produce neurotransmitters for focus and moods and stability, all kinds of stuff. Again, immune cells. So there's so much that's tied into this ecosystem that we need to have it. And so we start looking at these pro, pre, and postbiotics. Yeah, you can start consuming probiotics for sure. A lot of people could really benefit from them given the general landscape of American nutrition. We actually call it the SAD diet, ironically enough, called Standard American Diet.
Right.
And we're not getting enough real food. And so a lot of us have a dysbiosis or an imbalance in our gut bacteria. So consuming probiotics can be very beneficial. They'll come out and do some stuff. The other hand, some people can overconsume them and they can actually create more problems, because it's not about having all these amazing bacteria. It's about having bacteria in harmony. We do have what we call bad bacteria inside of our gut. However, these bad guys, they still play a role. Candida, Clostridium, right? These guys all play a role in your gut microbiome, this ecosystem. Whether they're good or bad, they're only bad in high amounts, right? The crack dealer at the gas station still contributes to the economy, but I mean, really, think about it. It's got a role.
Right. So he's still buying TVs and stereos once he gets 100%, money, right?
Or stealing them and selling them on Kijiji, right? So, I mean, he's doing something somewhere. And so these bad guys in our gut even have a role to play. It's when everybody is selling crack, then that's a problem.
Right. So let me ask you a personal question. Do you consume, probiotics or things like that, pre, in your routine?
No, I don't actually. So yeah, I used to, and I'll use them very specifically and target them strategically. For example, we can actually use specific bacteria and probiotics to target other bacteria. Mm-hmm. So for example, we know if somebody's coming in and having issues with like Candida, for example, what we can do is we can give them what's called Saccharomyces boulardii, and that in itself, that's another yeast, but it actually can help bring down the Candida. And so we have a lot of benefits to these specific things. Like they target each other very specifically. If I look at somebody with a GI map, for example, I can measure their microbiome and choose what things I want. Lactobacillus reuteri, that's another like lactobacillus type of strain. It's been shown really beneficial, for example, in like methanogens, or somebody who might be dealing with SIBO bacteria. We can use reuteri to bring down some of that. We can use lactobacillus or bifidobacterium to inhibit the growth of like Clostridium difficile or C. diff infections in patients who are going through antibiotic treatment. You're at risk for the C. diff infection. Anybody, nurses, doctors, they all know C. diff. Anybody who's dealt with gut issues knows the risks of C. diff. It can be debilitating and even deadly, but we can use probiotics in conjunction with treatment to help prevent its growth. So they're all very targeted, and again, it's in harmony. You have police that manage the drug dealers, that manage the ecosystem, and the white women who go to Starbucks, and everybody plays a role. And so your bacteria do much of the same.
Okay. It just sounds to me like, from the numbers that you're kicking out, like that shit should take care of itself. I mean, obviously you're saying if you eat right, it'll take care of itself, because that's a lot of juggling, but what about yogurt? I hear, you hear a lot of, you should go get some yogurt. You should have some every day to blah, blah, blah,
Here's the thing. Most of the bacteria we see, especially after things are pasteurized, they heat it, to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and they heat it through to kill off a lot of potential pathogens. I've found a lot more evidence for raw milk as opposed to pasteurized milk. There's over 60 enzymes in raw milk, for example, that help you break down, digest, and absorb 18 different fatty acids. But when we pasteurize it, we destroy it. You get less than 10% of those enzymes. You can't break it down. It becomes inflammatory. You develop an intolerance. But there are a lot of people who can drink raw milk. More people can actually consume raw than they can pasteurized. Right. There have been stories of people, mothers with kids who have autism, who started giving them raw milk, and boom, they no longer have autism.
Wow.
We used to look at autism as a structural issue in the brain, like you're born with an abnormality. We're now starting to identify it as an autoimmune or neurologically inflammatory condition. And so we're seeing things very differently as we start to develop things around the body. But unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry has such a stranglehold on our food, nutrition, and education that it's worth trillions of dollars. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, do I recommend yogurt? I don't recommend dairy for most people, especially American dairy. It's banned in like 23 different countries because it's so toxic.
Right.
That's just because of what they do and the junk they put. They use a hormone called RBGH, or recombinant bovine growth hormone, to make them produce more milk so they can make more profit, but it's known to cause genetic issues and cancers and brittle bones and all kinds of things. So I don't recommend dairy in the US, but if you find some quality dairy with quality microbes, sure. If it's been cultured properly, sure. It's very rare, especially in mass production. Most of them are dead, though, in the yogurt you get. On the other hand, they actually do produce these postbiotics, which you can then consume, and even those have benefits. So probiotics and probiotic foods in the right context can be beneficial, even if the bacteria are dead, because they produce postbiotics you can then consume, which do things on their way through.
Right. Oh, wow, dude. All right. So for all of you that are listening, I mean, I hope that you're like really listening and getting something from it. I'm going to tell you, I was listening, and I'm a guy and we don't do well at multitasking, but let me tell you something. While he was talking, I'm on my iPad and I just followed him on Apple Podmatch, or not Podmatch, Apple Podcast. And it's Reversible, the ultimate gut health podcast. Let me just read some of the titles of his most recent podcast that he put out. Gallbladder Trouble, How to Fix or Help Prevent Gallstones and Gallbladder Disease. Finding Your Why, What You Want to Know Now versus What You Want Most. Eczema, Psoriasis, Acne, Skin Issues, and How to Heal Them. Is dairy safe to eat or drink? So when he was answering that question about the yogurt, I started laughing. I'm like, yeah. I'm surprised he didn't say go check out the podcast. It was on December 5th.
Episode 26, yeah.
Why you should stop eating and start fasting. I love that one. Free range, all natural loopholes the food industry uses to charge more money. Fix anxiety by starting with your gut. Tell us about that, bro. What does she have to say about that?
That's Ali Miller. She's a registered dietitian and just brilliant. So we're talking about, here's the thing. Anxiety is typically an inflammatory condition. If it's not strictly trauma related, it's going to be an inflammatory condition related to imbalance of neurotransmitters. And so neurotransmitters are the things that your brain needs to do what it does to balance out. It's how your nerves communicate. It's how signals go from your brain to your fingers and all that. So it's transmitting these signals through nerves. That's why they're called neurotransmitters. And so they're made in your gut, most of them, up to 90%. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA, right? Serotonin we need, of course, it's a feel-good. Dopamine is another feel-good hit. But it's also responsible for things like focus. It's the reward system.
Right.
And we look at things like GABA. It's your chill button. So if you're really high strung, GABA is actually, it's gamma aminobutyric acid. It brings you down and helps you relax. These things are made inside your gut. If you have inflammation, imbalanced gut bacteria, you have these problems. One, you're not producing the neurotransmitters you need to get to where they need to go. Two, you're going to be highly inflamed. And if you're inflamed, you're not absorbing the nutrients you need to absorb to get your brain to function the way you need it to, minus all your other tissues and everything else. Three, if you have inflammation, you have leaky gut, so that the cells between your gut lining actually leak. Now, in your small intestine, it's one cell between that and your bloodstream and lymphatics, 2 cells in your large intestine. If you're inflamed, you leak. That shit gets through, travels around the superhighway in your body, which is your blood and lymphs, gets into your brain, into your joints, into your skin, into your whatever, causing inflammation, leading to these other problems like anxiety, depression, mood disorders. And I'll take you one step further, Derick. I've spoken to a lot of mental health professionals who specialize, who have had bipolar and all kinds of schizophrenia and diseases themselves. They were inflammatory conditions of the brain that started in the gut. And upwards of, in medicine, 20%, 30% is like a pretty astronomical number to take note of. Many would argue up to 100% of people with mental health conditions have some kind of gut issue.
Dude, come on, man. Are you kidding me? Holy shit. I knew I was going to enjoy talking to you, man. That's why I didn't go all into detail when we met briefly, because I knew this was the topic I wanted to talk about. Wow. So a couple, and I don't expect you to, we want everybody to go to Reversible Pod to check them out. And so we don't expect them to answer everything. I'm just being selfish and asking questions that I want to know the answers to. What about alkaline water? I knew it. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, he gave a face Man, he rolled his eyes. He turned his head sideways. If you could only see him now, if you want to see it, go to YouTube, Derick Gant 24K Life, and check it out. But I'm gonna let him answer. Go ahead, bro.
Timestamp the eye roll. Here's the thing. Yes, there's something to be said for drinking highly acidic shit all the time because we're always so acidic. Again, it's all contextual, but the alkaline water, it's a gimmick, man.
That's what I heard.
Totally.
I just heard this. Like, when I say just heard, bro, just heard like in the last 4 days.
So it's now. Here's the thing.
Exactly.
In chemistry, something cannot donate its properties and still maintain its properties. You can't have something alkaline that donates its electrons to something else and still remain alkaline. It's going to lose that charge. It's going to lose its pH is going to change. pH is potential hydrogen. And so if you have potential hydrogen, this charge, right, it becomes acidic, but you donate those properties, it becomes more alkaline. And so what we need is, maybe a pH neutral water, but to drink alkaline water, it gets into your stomach where it's full of hydrochloric acid, which is going to be your hydrogen and chlorine, and you need zinc and all kinds of shit to make it. But it's going to get destroyed like instantly. And if I'm drinking, here's my thought on this one as well. I have to confirm this. Don't quote me on it. It's just kind of a thought off the top of my head.
Okay.
We need pH in our stomach to digest, break down, and absorb, right? We need that. Some of the worst conditions that we have are people who chronically take antacids and Tums and pop that shit. One of the most common causes of acid reflux I see in my practice is actually low stomach acid, not high. And so if we're constantly drinking alkaline stuff to neutralize our pH, you're neutralizing your stomach acid. It doesn't make a difference to the rest of your body. You're actually going to be inhibiting, or theoretically could inhibit, your digestion. And so that's my initial thought. Alkaline water, it can't donate properties and maintain alkalinity. It doesn't make sense. Now, hydrogen water has different properties. I'll leave that to Gary Brecka. He talks about that all the time.
Okay.
That's more his field of expertise. Give me food, give me water, give me like spring water, mineralized water, give me grounding, give me bare feet in the grass, those types of things. And that makes more sense to me. The pH alkaline water just sounds like an expensive thing.
Somehow I knew it. And so my son's a personal trainer, right? And he's young. So he's just getting started. He's only been doing it, I think, a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about it. And I told him, I was like, yeah, bro, I just found out that alkaline water is bullshit. He's like, no way. I just heard that you need it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, dude, I heard it was, dude, it was fortuitous that you're here today because we were just arguing about this last night. So I'm going to make sure that he watches this episode. He watches all of them anyway. All right. So here's my last question. You got something else to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to touch on that one, we're dealing with alkaline water, right? Like H2O by itself is neutral. It's pH neutral. pH is 7, right? The human body is I think it's 7.34 to 7.35, I think is sort of the pH. It's a very, very minor shift. So we're just barely alkaline. We can add minerals to sort of alkalize water, right? Or to make it, here's the thing, acidic water, the shit you buy from the store, like Dasani and all that stuff, it is so acidic because of all the chemicals they put in, all the chlorine and the fluoride and all the junk. And most water in the US is going to have forever chemicals. It's going to have pharmaceuticals in it, like birth control and all kinds of shit. So our water is poison now. But if you want like real water, man, get spring water, get mountain water, get mineralized water. Right. At the very best, then it'll be more alkaline. But we're talking like from 7 to like 7.1.
All right.
As opposed to like
the one I like. It's not Everest. I'm trying to think of the one I like. I can't think of the name of it, but it's expensive. It's more expensive than all the other water I get.
As long as it's not tap water, man.
Definitely I'm not doing that.
You know what'd be good for you? Go to
So here's my last question. And I'm going to have you come back because there's just so many questions, or we can wait for the book. But anyway, sure. What's up with all the parasites? I mean, the parasite conversation. I mean, it's just all over the place.
So it's interesting. I actually spoke to 2 different practitioners on my podcast about this. And one, he goes, everybody's got parasites. You deworm your cats and dogs, and most dogs and cats eat bloody kibble. It's a dry, hardened food, and even they get parasites. We eat real food from the grocery store or whatever else, and we never deworm ourselves. The other argument would be that maybe we're overdiagnosing parasites. They're very hard to detect anyway. I mean, a gold standard would be a 3 to 5 day stool test, 1 to 2 stools a day, and you take those out and go to measure. And we're looking for live eggs, live protozoa, like live worms, or something we can actually detect in a microscope. So, but they make enzymes that actually break themselves down. Like they're very hard to detect. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to say people have parasites. I met with Dr. Paul Merrick. He's the one who did the episode on fasting with me. He is one of the most educated, brilliant men on planet Earth. He's the second most published critical care physician on planet Earth. He's been cited over 43,000 times in medical literature. And so when he says something like, I bloody pay attention, and he was telling me about a drug called mebendazole. And that's an antiparasitic that just so happened to be used on somebody, which just so happened to cure stage 4 cancer. And because their cancer was parasitic in nature. And there's a lot more indication. Barbara O'Neill talks about how a lot of
parasites talk about that.
Yep. And so these antifungals, antiparasitics can be responsible for these inflammatory conditions. So I'd say there's lots of evidence on either side. But if you were to run through and use something, talk to your doctor about like ivermectin. It got demonized in 2020, but it actually won a Nobel Prize for it was on the WHO most essential medicines list, where it's like, we need this. It's incredible, remarkable for all of its good things and benefits, but then they demonized it for money and profit, right? Of course, yeah. Because there's more money in the other drugs. And so that's the other thing we look at. And so to take an antiparasitic or something preventative, it's not going to hurt. It's only going to benefit. And many of the things we use for parasite treatment, for example, in the holistic world, if we're looking at herbs and things like black walnut, things like grapeseed oil or clove or oregano.
Cloves is a popular one.
100%. It's great, but they actually benefit your microbiome as well.
Okay.
Oops, knocking shit over. I'm getting excited. They benefit. And so so here's the thing about antibiotics. Pharmaceutical kill all the bacteria equally. Herbs and plants kill the bad and oftentimes support the good. Okay. And that's the difference. So we can actually kill off a lot of parasites and other bad bacteria by taking some of these antifungals, antimicrobials, while benefiting our good bacteria, promoting a healthier ecosystem inside of our gut. So there's a lot on either sides, of course. Too much of a good thing is a problem, but that's sort of the general overview.
Okay. Well, man, I enjoyed our time immensely, man. I feel all giddy inside, like I just tapped into a gold mine or something. So you are the gut gold standard. Josh Dech, go to Reversible Pod, check him out. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'm sure you can message him on the podcast and he'll happily maybe have a show about what your questions are. Josh, thank you so much, man. And we look forward to having you back.
It'll be my pleasure.
Go to reversiblepod.com. All right, you all, you heard it. Just a gold mine of gold standard information. The alkaline water, bullshit. You want to clean your system out? Go to ground beef and rice and then slowly start adding. Intuitive eating is what he said. That means you need to be paying attention to what you're eating and how it makes you feel long term. I appreciate his expertise, the time, and his spirit. Think about this. He stopped doing what he was doing as a profession and decided that this was what he was going to focus on to help people. You notice he didn't try to pitch you a coaching program. He wants you to understand what good health really is, what good gut health really is. I'm Derick Gant. Be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And we'll continue to bring amazing people like Josh.